Hello, Heathens.
Hello, Heathens.
Man, I'm excited for today's episode. We just got back from vacation, although there will not be a lapse in episodes, so you guys probably would not know that, but
Yeah.
happy to be back.
It was a road trip for sure.
Seriously, it really was. I mean, my God, we drove 12 hours and it was a good trip. Honestly, I don't think I've ever had a road trip that went that well where we were just like in sync the whole time.
Well, and I think you and I discussed this about how it's really nice to have people that can feel outside of themselves to kind of you were feeling tired and at the end of the day we were like, let's just get pizzas and I'm like, oh my God, thank God you said that.
Yeah, we had a dinner reservation and I was like, so we don't have to do this, but I'm
Can we
just
stay home and watch
can
Harry
we
Potter,
say,
please?
yeah. Can we keep watching Harry Potter and just order pizza and start going to dinner, please? And everybody's like, oh, thank God.
Oh, sigh of relief.
Seriously. Yeah, so today's episode is Ritual Magic Part 2. And as those watching, not listening, can see, we have a friend with us today.
We have friends.
We have friends. Weird, right?
Other heathens.
Other heathens. Nicole, would you like to introduce our friend to the heathenistic people?
This is my friend I met along my journeys, and his name is Mac Herbert.
Mac.
Hi.
Hi,
welcome,
Mac.
welcome.
It's such a pleasure to be here with you ladies today, rolling in the heathen dirt.
It is. I love that. It's a pleasure to have you, Mac. I mean, I met Mac, you guys, through Nicole, because he works at our favorite restaurant ever. And he's such a pleasure to talk to. And at first time I met him, I was like, I looked at Nicole and I was like, oh, I like him. He's like, I know.
Thanks.
Let me a little backstory, and I don't even know if Mac remembers this. There was one time that Rob and I went in there, and we were having a little dispute about how much alcohol was in each of our drinks, because I drink scotch. And I was like, well, mine obviously has more alcohol, and he drinks a dirty martini. So in my logic, in my head, and it's only Nicole logic, this isn't universal, mine would obviously have more alcohol percentage or whatever. So Matt comes up, and at this time he was serving, and we told him, or we were like, what do you think which one is gonna, he went in the back and actually calculated it out and was like, actually his has more alcohol percentage in it. And I was like, oh, it was so funny though.
I don't remember that.
That's when we fell in love with you.
I don't remember that.
It was amazing. It was amazing.
That's great. People who love the service industry love it for moments like that. So, you're complimenting me, but it's awesome when you guys come into the restaurant too. It's like the best thing ever. To have real people come in and treat me like a person, and
not just a server.
Right. Surprisingly rare. I mean, yeah, it's surprisingly rare.
No, it is.
Yeah, it is.
I feel like in service industry, you do get this and I forget it because we both, I think you've worked in the service industry too, Cassie.
Yeah, my cousin owns a bar in Jackson. So I started in the back of the house, then moved to the front, then moved behind the bar. It was like I played all parts sometimes. And so I totally understand.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's just social hierarchy, right? It's very, very natural. And it's natural for people to walk into a place like that and be like, I'm better than you, or at least you're here to serve me. And so that's our relationship. And so, get on your knees or whatever.
Right. And it's funny because the way they do it, I feel like, and I just say they, because it's a blanket statement. It's not anything, but
yeah.
It's a very toxic to make them feel better, right? And it's funny though, because the more I'm studying the Bible and stuff, is the more that I was like, oh, so there was a part of it where it caught me kind of nice that you're not really necessarily supposed to strive for a higher or to raise your bar or your service or your where you're at, your class, I think it is. And I was never told that, right? Like I was always told to strive, like I'm not enough. So I'm always striving for more, right? Never satisfied with what I have, never have time to enjoy it even. And when I read that, or when they were talking about that, and I was like, oh, now like you can take like if something was given to you or presented to you, you take that like next step up. Even like if you were at a place, if like we came over your house, the etiquette would be we sit in the back where the servants are instead of sitting like, because you would rather be moved up than be like embarrassed that you have to move down because somebody is more important than you. And I really like that whole idea of that, because I can see how peaceful and humbling that is without it being like toxic and like oppressive, right? Like you can see where you could have that be oppressive, and you could see where there's empowerment in that.
Actually liberty in it. I think, well, I mean, when we're talking about magic, no topics off limits, right? But I didn't think we were going to talk about the Bible today, but one of my favorite lessons from the Bible is it's not often noticed by mainstream Christians, but it's pretty explicit in the writings of Paul, especially, that God is all, and that all is God. And I mean, specifically, Paul says, there's no favorites, there's like there's nobody above anybody else. And one of the enemies that God defeats are the authorities, which is the power structure, the hierarchy that's in our society. And of course, Christ destroyed those things directly by doing the kind of stuff you were talking about, by walking into the back kitchen and sitting down there.
Yeah. I was just going to say that Christ did that because he hung out with the homeless. He hung out with the poor. He helped uplift them and was like, screw the patriarchy.
He totally did. And that's that's liberating to like realize, to really realize that truth, that it's all an illusion that society has built. And I guess it probably serves a purpose. I mean, it's not necessarily the enemy, this patriarchy hierarchy thing, but it's definitely not true, like in any way. It's not like it's not reality.
People always sit there and say like there's an illusion in this world, right? And I don't know if that is the illusion, but for me right now, I definitely see where like that's the illusion. Like I was taught like, oh, if I'm serving, I'm less than. And now I've gotten to a point where like I'm not, I'm choosing to serve. And who I'm serving on, right? Like
totally.
Yeah.
So oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead, please. You're so excited.
Ahead, please. No, go ahead.
You're so excited. Say what you're gonna say.
Well, I was gonna be like, we might as well get into like, so how did Ritual Magick come to you?
I'd love to tell that story. So let's see. It goes way back. I was a fairly isolated child and lived in the country. Didn't have a lot of friends at school anyway, but even if I did, it wasn't like we could walk to each other's houses or anything like that. So I spent a lot of time reading books in my room. I still have most of those books. They're behind me now. I've been collecting books my whole life. And I'm not sure what order it came, but at some point I found books on magic. And I think my very first book on magic was, I know this is going to come off as seeming like I'm bragging or something, but I really think it was accidentally The Book of the Law by Aleister Crowley.
Oh, wow.
Because I remember, it was one of the first ones because I got it out at the city library. We lived near Rochester, New York, and we were taking a trip to Rochester, and my local library card worked there. So, and I found this book, like actually they had an occult book section, which my local library didn't have. And I was like, oh, what's this? The Book of the Law. And it's an intriguing book. I'm sure you've both held copies of it. It's like small, but like very very vibrant kind of a book, and every word has a lot of like force but not a lot of apparent meaning. It's a very intriguing book. I still don't know much about it or anything. I'm not a big Crowley guy, but I remember the librarian warned my mother and said, I'm not sure he's old enough for this.
Burn that book.
Yeah, she probably was like, she probably was, evangelical Christian or something, and was like freaked out to see a little kid checking out this satanic book, But anyway, I read through it and tried to get it, and then started getting out at the bookstore. Remember bookstores? I used to go to the mall and get books at the bookstore. I started getting out the Llewellyn books, and got like Celtic Magic, and I think there was one that was called Scottish Magic specifically. I have some Scottish in my background. But honestly, all of those kind of like cookie cutter Llewellyn books were pretty much the same, based on old, like kind of simplified Wicca rituals. But those were my first magical rituals. I lit the candles. I gathered the tools. I, sat out in my backyard and under the moon and did magic. And at the time, it didn't feel much different than playtime for me, like pretend time.
Yep.
Which I think
How old were you at this point?
Like 11 or 12.
Okay.
It felt like playtime. It still feels like playtime.
It still feels like playtime.
Back then, though, playtime was more common. Now it's like my only playtime. It's where I like get into my creative space and try to affect my world, and sometimes I do it and sometimes I don't. But it's always a good feeling. So just to bridge that little bit of a thing, for me, even back then when I was very naive and didn't really have a good understanding of what I was even trying to do or whatever, I already, like, the foundations of magic were already at work, because the same feelings I had back then I still get now, and of course I get more and more diverse and more specific feelings now, and I'm better at it, I think. I can like I'm better at visualizing. I'm better at like, well, I've memorized more things. I've become more familiar with certain entities, and we can discuss that too. But the big thing, the big turning point for me was this guy right here. And I brought it out because I wanted you to see how battered it is, but it's called The Magician's Companion. And it's not really, have you seen this? It's not really a magic book. It's more of like a reference book. It has like alphabets, like the Sufi alphabet. And, cool. The 42 letter name of God, and all of the Enochian table. This is the first time I saw an Enochian table.
I think I have.
Which,
what's awesome. The Enochian table? There's so much I don't know.
Oh my gosh, let's talk about Enochianism real quick here.
Okay.
And if somebody's watching this that knows more about Enochian than I am, then I'll apologize in advance. And I'll try not to make any like assertions that I'm not sure about. But
well, I think all of our listeners actually do know. We always say we're still learning. We're senpais, but we also have senpais, so we're all still learning. So in the future, we could, retract something that we said in our knowing of now. We know what we know now.
Right.
That's good. Thanks.
Yeah, of course.
So there was this Elizabethan magician named John Dee. And,
I know John Dee.
Yeah.
And Kelly, right?
Yeah, that's right. And they talked to angels, according to them. And they wrote down a language that the angels taught them. And they called it Enochian, after the, I guess, patriarch Enoch, who purportedly could speak to angels or did speak to angels. And so the idea was that this would have been the language that the angels used with Enoch. It's sort of a loose correlation. I don't think it's that meaningful, except for the transmissions that the angels gave in this language were very much in line with the Book of Enoch, which is an apocalyptic book, or is often considered to be an apocalyptic book. So there are a lot of like descriptions of what's going to happen when the whole universe collapses, basically. And they're dark and scary kind of things. And those transmissions have been called the callings, the Enochian calls. And supposedly if you execute all of the calls in the right intonation and everything, then you eminentize the eschaton, you bring about the end of the world. And supposedly Crowley and Jack Parsons were both trying to do that, and may or may not have succeeded in some sense. I don't know, but
it's very interesting because when you start thinking about magic in a bigger picture, like we were just at this like conference about, and we were in this room about curses because we were like want a deeper understanding of other things. And one of the girls in there was like, well, is there a way to curse a whole generation? And I was like, do we really want to curse a whole but thinking big like that, like it could affect the whole world. And then putting it together with like, as I study the Bible, I'm like noticing these like patterns I feel like are being blanket over the world that we still use, that they were using it for a ritual purpose, but now we use it as like, oh, it's for health, or it's for like this, or manipulating people. Circumcision is the one that's really easy for me to like example, because that was part of like Abraham's like ritual, and all of his sons or seeds or something like that, they would be part of that Abraham covenant if they were circumcised, and what was the other thing that they had to do? Eat kosher. I think those are the two things. Oh, and follow the law. They had to follow the law.
Follow the law. Circumcision would have been part of the law. So they really just had to do one thing, which was 600 and something things.
Literally a lot.
Yeah.
Have you guys heard of Sheila Gillette, by the way? She's a channeler who talks to the Enoch. She talks to archangels.
Oh, okay.
And I think you guys would both be very interested in her conversations and what she has with different interviewers through channeling. She channels one of the archangels, Theo, and they ask her about Lucifer as well.
Oh, cool.
And it's very interesting because the way that the archangels speak through her, it's not about like bad and good, good and evil. They actually tell this Theo, the one that is speaking, which is the collection of all of them speaking through her, because the human mind likes to think we have to talk to one person to be able to talk, but it's the collective talking through her. They're all talking is what they tell the interviewer. And it's really interesting because things like evil are man-made concept. Lucifer and Satan is a man-made concept. Lucifer is still an archangel, is what they tell the interviewer. And I found that super interesting. So you bringing up Enoch, I was like, wait, I've heard this before. And Sheila Gillette taps into like that collective to bring forth like different channeling messages, which I'm
awesome.
like,
Founder, thanks.
Yes, she's very interesting. And you can see the difference. If you guys have never watched a channeler before, just for our listeners too, it's very interesting to see when a new energy comes through, how completely different they are, their mannerisms, the way their face sits, like the way they're like just composed. Because I'm a mover, I like to get moving. And she like goes from being somebody who also uses her hands and is smiling to completely dead still. Face is like super intense, and like even her voice kind of changes, and it's just so Sheila Gillette, people. She's a very interesting person to watch channel.
Well, and it's almost like watching somebody like drive a new car, right? Because that's what they're doing. Like their face isn't quite like right, or like they start to like
you're like
do
sitting up on the wheel, and you're like, no scratches.
Why are the windshield wipers going?
It does seem like
bugs
that.
on my car.
We have to turn back.
So, Mac, where would you say you're at now in your practice? Do you have a daily practice, or do you do something more like ceremonial where you have to set it up to then get into that space? Or do you do both?
I do it as often as I can. My whole day is filled with magic. I do ritual when I park my car, and I either protect it or you know um hope that there's more gas in it when I get back or something like that. Sometimes I pay attention to the stations of the sun. I've been doing that since I was 16. The Israel Regardie, like, basic, like, very first thing that you're supposed to start doing is just paying attention and saying a little prayer when the sun rises and sets, and when it's in the middle of the night and when it's in the middle of the day. It's very simple, but I've got kind of an intuitive connection to that now. And then once in a while, I will, like, on the solstices and equinoxes, especially, or if I'm at a personal crossroads, I'll do a big ritual. Usually an invocation. I really have had a lot of interesting growth experiences from invocation work, and if I really need to get something big done, it'll be that. But that's probably maybe once a year. Not like it's exactly once a year, but if I ever do anything like that, it's once a year and at most. And I'll take time off and go be solitary for that.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I'm at now.
What deities are you working with?
Um,
We are very interested in deity work, and I feel like that is something Nicole and I have yet to dip a toe into.
Yeah. So I mainly seem to resonate with the Greek pantheon. And if I want to get a little bit more fuzzy with my associations, I go to Egypt. So because I find them to be a little bit more, like, I hope you know what I mean by fuzzy. Like, I
like
tend
warm
to follow
and fuzzy.
Like what? Warm and
like
fuzzy?
Warm
No,
and fuzzy?
like definitionally fuzzy. Like, so okay, so like I have specific one-to-one correspondences with, or ideas that correspond with certain deities. Like, I think all of us in this realm have an affinity with Hermes, right? I mean, he's our dude, he's our patron dude. And but also, like, I feel like I almost know him too well. So if I want to, like, start to explore a mystery, I'll go to Thoth instead, which, and I'll start to think about his attributes, but defined as this creepy, like, a half bird, like, standing in the realm of the dead, like, really offering depth and mystery, so that's what I mean by fuzzy, like fuzzy in terms of associations and familiarity. Like, I think that fuzziness opens up new associations and new kind of routes and new surprises that I can. Of course, Hermes surprises me anyway, so whenever I work with him, he's always got something novel to offer. So
it's kind of like you're not putting any hard lines in the sand. Is that what you mean by fuzzy?
That is
like
what I mean. Yeah.
You're not putting yourself in a box of just the Greek,
right.
Like you said, pantheon, or however you'd like to say it. But yeah, you're not putting yourself in that box. It's fuzzy. That's who you identify with. But then if you have to go further, you reach out to a different deity. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
But I would say ultimately, most of the work that I do when I'm thinking about deity, I have a Unitarian idea of that. Like, when I'm doing specific invocations, I consider that to be actually consider everything to be an aspect of God. You and I and Hermes and Thoth, and like, it's all just God. But I got to look at God a little bit at a time usually, because otherwise I don't have much to say. Like, if I really, really see God all at once, it's not something I can talk about usefully. It's awesome. It's great, but it's not something that I can describe.
Well, and that's the whole thing about with everything. Like, it's so above human concept that, like, it transcends words and even feelings at that point. Like, you just know, right?
Right, exactly. So but I also do a lot of goddess work. and love exploring and interacting with the feminine side of deity. I lacked that a lot in my life, so and my wife is exclusively a goddess worshiper, and so I have a lot of like feminine energy around. And I grew up with sisters, and like, and I consider the feminine side of deity to be the aspect of deity that men most need to understand. Like, it's where the most work can be done, just kind of on a social realistic way level. I think that's super important, so for us to grow. So
it's cool you say that, because our next couple episodes, just to kind of give everybody a little flavor, our next one is polarity, and then we go in the divine masculine, and then into the divine feminine as well. So it's like cool that you're saying that, because I'm like, oh, that's like right on brand with the way we're going here.
Heck yeah, we did not discuss that beforehand.
Nope.
Oh, that's exciting though. That'll be cool.
Yeah. So how do you feel like you got into deity work? Do you feel like it was something like a book that you read, or how did you how did it come to you?
Yeah, so let's see. I have a friend that likes to say that the future is more certain than the past. And whenever I'm trying to dig into deep memory, I reflect on that. Like, everything I'm about to say may have been imagined, but
we'll take it. We'll take it.
I had a physics teacher who lived in a geodesic dome when I was in high school. And I asked her about metaphysics. What the heck was metaphysics? And she gave me, oh my gosh, I can't remember the name of the book, but the very first Carlos Castaneda book. I think it's like something like A Sorcerer's Apprentice or something like that. And it's basically like a drug journal, that first book. Like, there's a bunch of like peyote experiences and mushroom experiences and things like that. And it's really wild, especially to a young man's mind, but also like it's all interpreted through this like pseudo shamanistic worldview, where the plants each had their own spirit, but like personality type spirit, which is an idea I still find really useful. Although I think it's a little bit restrictive to what plants really are. But beyond that, there was specifically one guy named Mescalito, who was the peyote spirit, and who, according to these books and Carlos's experience that he was reporting, could help the ally of the spirit dream intentionally. And so I started sort of clumsily invoking Mescalito before I would sleep. And about a week into that, I had what I guess I would classify now as a sleep paralysis moment, where I was completely fully awake, and this Mescalito dude was standing there next to my bed. And
why can't I move?
Yeah. Yeah, it was pretty freaky.
God. Yeah, that's terrifying. Especially as like, how old were you?
So this would have been 15, I guess.
Oh,
yeah, 15 years old. Yeah.
You're like, I'm never sleeping with a light off again.
It's true. What I started doing was I started tying soda cans together and putting them around on the floor in case as like an alarm. I had another bed in the room that was like, I don't know what it was in there. It was just storage or whatever, but I put like a fake person in there. I made like out of pillows and stuff so that Mescalito would go scare the fake person instead of me. but eventually, actually, it didn't even take that long. I reconciled with this spirit and started to have some really, really cool experiences with lucid dreaming and stuff. So And that has now become my like touch point, my like symbolic touch point for if I want to do dream work. I talked to my old friend Mescalito, who scared the piss out of me when I was young, but now we're, and by the way, I've never done peyote or even mescaline. Like I don't know
I was
that
going to
plant.
ask you.
Yeah, I'd love to, but I don't know that plant, and I almost respect it too much to go after it. There's another cactus that contains mescaline, San Pedro, which is less like threatened environmentally, that I might explore someday. But man, I have such deep respect for those spirit plants that sometimes just like having them around me is enough. Like I don't really need to go all the way there. I think that they're amazing and really like a key part of what it means to be human. And so I think it's so incredible. So yeah, like if anybody's never tried psilocybin mushrooms before and are nervous about it, then I recommend just carrying some in like a little pouch for a while and getting to know them that way, because you really, especially when you sleep, they will speak to you. And getting to know them that way can help with your first experience. Of course, growing them yourself is even better.
Man, growing them yourselves is a labor of love, a labor of love. It's funny you say that, Mac. You just made me realize something. I'm a very, very vivid dreamer. I do a lot of my work through dreaming, and I sleep with mushrooms next to my bed. Nice. And I never have thought about that. And you just made me realize, duh.
That's so cool.
Holy crap. I always have mushrooms next to my bed. I always usually if I get some, because I get gifted them often, I will give most of them to Nicole so she can then, it helps her. We were talking about this, I think in the last episode or the episode before, that it helps to basically bring her back to her normal state of being. It's like a snake that sheds its skin. She's able to shed that layer of external stuff. Yes. Get back to her. And I am somebody who I don't mind doing very little, but that loss of control is hard for me.
Sure.
So then I like sleeping with them next to my bed, and I never thought about it until just now. That's probably helping my dream state like crazy.
Oh, that's awesome.
How cool.
I love that. I might start doing that too. That's a great idea. Do you keep them in like a ceramic container, or?
I have a glass, I mean this with all respect, heathens, but I'm a heathen, okay? The old lady candy jar things with the lid.
Sure. Yeah.
I have one of the little packets you get in shoe boxes that helps to keep them fresh. Right. I have that taped to the top, and the mushrooms in there.
The moisture out.
Yeah, to keep the moisture out. Yep. And then I just keep them in there, and they're right next to my almost level. Now that I think about it, I'm like, wow, dang, I can put thought into that. That's so cool.
Mine are right next to my bed. Well, some of them, they made it after the trip. They made it next to my bed as well.
Look at us go. We didn't even know what we were doing.
I love that.
Yeah, that's
mushrooms.
Cool.
Right now, mushrooms. It's weird because my drug stuff literally comes to me. I don't even have to pay for it anymore. It literally just comes to me. I was like, okay, so now I'm doing this because the universe said so. Okay. And then experimenting with it and realizing what, especially with mushrooms, God, I feel like anybody that's dealing with mental illness, even with the right guidance and stuff like that, it helps so much to rewire, to understand oh, I don't have to be a victim to this, or whatever you're trying to think your way through. It's just, I didn't realize a lot, especially because we did Intuition 101, and Cassie really researched well, even how I was feeling, and noticing things that I didn't quite notice, and really touched on a whole thing. And that was it. All of it has been really helpful for me.
That's awesome. Here, by the way, I totally agree. It's deep medicine,
Yeah.
It cures the stuff that causes the other stuff.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like mushrooms take you to a higher level of like feeling, and it like instead of being so grounded in the 3D, it pulls you up a little bit to be able to like work
Yeah.
through everything with ease instead of like like trekking through the mush, right? Like you're getting your boots stuck. This
So
like makes
right.
an easy path to like where it's like flowing water in a way. Where it's
Such
like
a great
Yeah, it
description.
takes it takes down those barriers, and like you're like, it almost like, for me, the way I see it is like, take these like walls and they not explode them and shatter them, but like break them apart, and then you can be like, oh, well, this is where I want to put them instead. Like they were
Right.
there and now they're here.
Right.
yeah.
Or I
Yeah.
chuck them out completely, depending on what it is. Programming, man, programming.
Programming, man. Yeah, you gotta, it takes a lot to get rid of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Mac, do you take classes or do you normally go and research it yourself and do like book work?
I'm almost entirely self-taught, but I have come across teachers here and there that I've worked with for years at a time, and back during the whole like high school discovery kind of phase, I signed up for the what are they called, the American Rosicrucian people out in California. I signed up for their correspondence course, so I worked through all that.
Wow, that's
Kind of
cool.
basic with, and they're linearly connected to the Golden Dawn somehow. I mean, there's some version of, so we would do tarot stuff and um uh remote viewing, or out of
Yeah.
body experiences and lucid dreaming and
Mm-hmm.
all that kind of like basic work stuff. um so but all of the shadow work I did on my own.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the memorization and like visualization work I did on my own. I've done ritual with people. I've done ritual with lots of different kinds of people, like people who consider themselves Satanists and do black masses
Mm-hmm.
and stuff like that. And I've done like Wicca stuff, and I've run around in the woods naked and stuff like that. But I pretty much, yeah, I love doing.
Damn it, we haven't done that yet.
Oh, you gotta do that. So
we gotta do
fun.
that. Nicole and I, we want to do that perfect recreation of the witches dancing around in their scantily clad like nightgown. That's basically you're naked dancing around a fire under the full moon thing.
Oh,
completely.
yeah.
And
It's so
we haven't
awesome.
done it.
Get some drums going, whooping and hollering,
and drums,
yes.
howling at the moon.
Yes. But yeah, no, it's mostly been, I think I would consider myself mostly an autodidact. So
An autodidact?
yeah, self-taught.
Self-taught.
Yeah.
Is that like a fancy word for self-taught?
He's got fancy words.
So I'm gonna look it up.
He said so he's like us. We're like, hey Julie,
I made that up.
Yeah, self-taught.
Self-taught. I
used it
love
right.
that. I feel like when you are a solo practitioner, you don't really follow one specific way. You do end up being able to be a part of all these different groups. It's really cool because like you kind of are more going with the flow as opposed to being solitary in one specific practice. This is all you know. This is all you believe in. And when you're self-taught and you're looking at all these different things and you have your own practices, you get to like then go learn different things you could then add to your practice. And we talk about this often, guys, but like I want to reiterate, like if there's a class that you might potentially you have any little interest in it, you're probably being pulled to it because there's something in that class that you could take and use for your future stuff. Like keep in mind, we always say use discretion for everything. Use discernment, try to tap in, make sure everything is right for you. But I feel like you're a good example of that, Mac, where it's like you've done all these different things with all these different groups that have a specific belief, but then you're able to take it, whatever you've learned or whatever you want to take from it. Sometimes it's probably been nothing, you've just enjoyed the experience, right? So it's like such a cool thing to hear from another solo self-taught practitioner.
I mean, I think there is a there is a danger of digging a lot of shallow holes instead of one deep one. You know, you want to be careful that you're not just like avoiding by bouncing around to different subjects and stuff,
Right.
avoiding the real work, you know. And I think I've met people on my journey that are doing that or seem to be doing that, who, you know, but for me, it's not like that I takes what I want from the experiences. It's that I get the same thing from all the experiences. I think we're all doing the same dance, you know, or as Ram Das said, we're all walking each other home, you know. And so I mean, I can go to like a Hindu kirtan and dance for Krishna and I'm getting goosebumps saying dance for Krishna because I fucking love Krishna and I think I love God, I love Jesus, you know, and I want to dance for those. They're the same person, you know, they're the same, they're the same dude, they're the same idea or whatever you want to say. Like we were saying before, language gets limited at that point, but
it does.
Like I honestly would get the same experience. Like it's all God, you know, God is all. So and what changes is like what specifically I can learn. So like the plant teachers that I've had, you know, have broadened my understanding of plant life and the interdependence of the life on this planet, you know, that's or like the science teachers that I've had, like I'm interacting with this one woman right now that's I forget what they're archaeological biologist, and she studies old bones, you know, and she's really big on primates, and so she's like right at the cutting edge of like the lineage right before humanity in terms of the primates, and I'm learning so much about that beautiful mess of beings that have existed and that really deserve all of our curiosity and attention as much as any of the living primates do. You know, they're so cool, and they're our cousins and our grandparents, and you know, like they're directly related to us. So yeah, I wouldn't know that just by screwing around and you know, like seeing that all is all. Like that's a differentiate. So yeah, so that goes back to the original magical weapons, right? That's the sword. That's the sword that analyzes and that turns the all into many. And that's an important part of magic too, right? I know that's kindergarten stuff, but let's just say it out loud once in a while, you know.
Sometimes we are kindergartners and sometimes we need to go back to being kindergartners, right? Like being reminded of the basics so that our foundation is good.
Right. So that's the growth.
Right.
God breaks apart and then comes back together, you know. That's the in and out. That's the own.
Well, it's alchemy, right? Like the universe is it's pouring itself into alchemy and we're going through the stages. I mean, that's what evolution is. We're taking away the impurities and becoming more of, well, I'm hoping we're becoming more of a pure society or being. I mean, we're in the middle of it, so of course it doesn't look as good as what we think it's supposed to look like, but
yeah, all this stuff is stardust too, though. So
right.
Yeah.
We've already been at it almost an hour, but we've barely scratched the surface.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and that's exactly how magic is.
Yeah. Was there anything else you wanted to talk about today?
Well, I would like to ask you if you have any advice for people, because this is like our part 2. I think we went into last time the basics of like where to start, what to do, and I'm curious to know what advice you would give somebody if they ask, well, where do I start? What do I do?
Yeah, for sure. First of all, if you have, my first advice would be to do it. If you have any interest in ritual magic, even if the kind of esoteric stuff we got into today didn't land squarely, your interest indicates that it would be good for you to do it. Second of all, in my opinion, this is branching it purely into my opinion, but in my opinion, the first and easiest thing to start doing is meditating, and specifically either concentration meditation or no mind meditation, or alternating between the two. They're both very useful for growth and centering and just general well-being. And it cultivates what I like to call the blank slate type of mind, which is what you're going to want when you're starting any ritual. Like it's just a foundational ground state way to be when you're entering a ritual space. So I have a really favorite book about meditation. It's called A Journey of Awakening. It's by Ram Dass, who was one of Timothy Leary's buddies back in the Harvard days, back in the LSD days. And instead of going down the techno LSD path, he went to India and got a new name. And he actually brought LSD to his guru, who was like, eh. So Ram Dass wrote a book about meditation, and it's fantastic. It's very nuts and bolts. It just tells you what to do and how to do it, and gives some inspirational examples of doing it. And then you know, there's two directions that I think you could go. Okay, let's go three. I kind of went all directions at once. One of them is Israel Regardie and the whole Golden Dawn tradition. There's a lot of literature there, and you can get very step-by-step instructions about not only about what to do to explore this kind of work, but also what to expect and what the ideas are behind the work. So that would be a nice next step. There's also the path of chaos magic, which is a little bit harder to map out, but there's a really good almost like a pamphlet about it called Pop Magic by Grant Morrison, who's a comic book author and chaos magician, and it's available online on his website. I think it's just grantmorrison.com, but you could just Google Pop Magic PDF and you'll find it. It's awesome. It's like a cartoony, step-by-step thing on how to get started doing magic. Really good. And then the third way, which maybe really is my favorite way, is to just take those tools you learned from meditating and take about a week off and go out by yourself into the woods and spend time being quiet and listening. And that's how you hear direct instructions from the source. And if you want to bring some magic plants with you, that'll help a lot. But you don't really even need them. The solitude and the quiet mind will be enough in my experience. And try to do that anyway, because there's lots of theories about why, but spending time in nature is measurably healthy for you. Right. So yeah, it's good for you. So do that.
That's amazing.
I was wondering if there's any experiences through your journey that you would like to share with anybody.
Yeah, let's see.
Yeah, copper.
Yeah, see? My goodness, there's been so many. There's okay, here's my favorite one from recent times. This one I talk about a lot, but I think it's really kind of cool and illustrative of just the nuts and bolts practicality of magic. So I'm a tobacco smoker. I've speaking of magic plants, I've smoked tobacco since I was, in high school. So a long time of my life. I'm in my 40s now. So I came to a point where I was really unhealthy. I was getting bronchitis twice a year. I was just a mess about it. And also my wife and I were expecting our first child, and cigarettes were getting expensive, and all kinds of reasons to stop smoking cigarettes. And I was able to kind of wean off of them and then onto vaping. But then I got sick of vaping and started smoking cigarettes again. And then this was a time in my life, and I think we all go through ebbs and flows, where I was really disconnected with kind of the harmony of the universe. I didn't know it, but I was on my way to like a legitimate mental breakdown that I had about a year later. But I was under a lot of stress that had been normalized and kind of fucked up. And but I don't know what moment it was, but I think actually what I was doing was I was kind of going back through some of my older books, and I realized, or it just occurred to me, or I got a flash of inspiration, that I am a magician and I can deal with this problem with magic. And so I spent about 2 weeks working on an invocation for the tobacco spirit. And I started by spending time with the tobacco, smoking a little bit of it, burning a little bit more of it, smelling it, thinking about it and its whole process of life and evolution and everything. And I allowed the idea of the spirit to occur to me as a beautiful woman who's powerful and strong, very much like the many conceptions in Native American tradition of the tobacco goddess, noble and important. And then I did a ritual. I did a full like circle and ritual. I ritually invoked her, without the demonic, traps and stuff like that. Like I invited her to hang out with me, and I asked her what she wanted from me. I asked her if I had given her what she wanted, and she said, nope. I said, well, what is it? What is it that you want? And she said, I want your attention. I want you to think about me. I want you to miss me when you don't have me. I want your devotion. And I said, well, you have that whether I smoke or not. That's already been established. And she's like, that's true. And I didn't stop craving tobacco that day. But the cravings manifested as devotion to her, and as giving her what she wanted, and satisfying her. And once she was satisfied, they passed. And so all I really did was not all I really did. Let's not diminish what I did. I didn't really do anything. But if you want to go to like cognitive behavioral therapy, I recontextualized the whole experience of addiction, and not into a positive one, but into one that I could manage, into one that made sense to me and was a reasonable thing. Like it wasn't a discomfort that I could be comfortable with, and so I still keep tobacco in my ritual space. I keep it. It's a very important plant to me. In fact, I'll be growing it in my garden this year, but I won't smoke it anymore. And I am addicted to it, I guess, but just like in the way that I'm addicted to all of my favorite deities, So this is a plant spirit that I really love and will always love. So
that's a very cool, very powerful experience. Because as you were talking about the ritual part, I started getting like a little teary over here. I was like, oh my gosh, like that's so cool that you actually gave that, like that energy, the respect that it was wanting from you. Like that's so powerful. And like it, I don't know, it was moving, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I found it to be moving too. Like in the sense that it reconciles, disparate parts of me, parts that we're fighting, and so it feels right to reconcile those things. And an awesome coffee mug. And
oh yes. Which one do you have out today, Nicole?
Walking Dead.
Oh, The Walking Dead. Yes.
It's Glenn.
Oh, Glenn.
Oh, Glenn.
You didn't deserve it.
He didn't. But what a glorious death it was.
Not like this.
Not like this.
Well, I think that is it today, guys. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that with us.
It was really cool.
It's a really cool story.
I guess I wanted to add like just my little like because I do smoke cigarettes too, or I continue to smoke them. And it's so fascinating to me because like if you think about it, they were the first crop we had on the American soil,
Mhm.
right? So they supported a lot of life here and established our stuff.
It really is a mother plant. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so instead of, and I've always had this intuitive thought about like, it's not the cigarette, it's the reason why you're smoking that gives you these disease in your body, in your temple.
Mhm.
And so lately what I've been doing is thanking them, every one of them, for, you know, spending their life with me for my fulfillment and that kind of thing. And just realizing how I feel and what I'm doing. Because again, it must go back to this whole thing about clairsentience and me being overwhelmed with the energies that I continuously absorb, which I haven't like figured out how to like. I don't know if I'm supposed to cut it off. That's a whole nother story though.
Mhm.
So going outside and being with nature, it gives me a normal excuse to exit like a party when I'm overwhelmed.
Totally.
It gives me an excuse to walk outside, whether it's raining, whether it's snowing,
Mhm.
you know, whether there's something going on. It gives me this like where nobody questions me why I'm doing something weird or whatever, right? Like it's a normal
Mhm.
thing. But I try to respect it instead, because I don't think we do, right? We're taught that it's bad and it's evil and it's gonna make you blah blah blah.
Mhm. Or like you said, we're transferring all of our other angst and problems onto it instead of really like honoring it for what it is, for the support it's giving us in those moments. You know,
Right.
we blame it for those things, or we, you know, or we dump
Yeah.
those things on it, you know. Yeah.
That's so great that you actually said support, because it is supportive.
Heck yeah.
And
It's comforting and
could you
mothering.
imagine?
Yeah.
Right. Could you
Yeah.
imagine if you were like, well, it's all your fault. I'm like this, even though you supported me through this
Right.
thing.
Right.
Oh,
Exactly.
having those conversations with inanimate, what we considered, I guess, in this 3D world, inanimate like objects, like where everything, it goes back to that shaman thing about everything has a soul, everything has an essence and an energy and stuff like that. And actually talking to them and realizing it.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Great.
Yeah, I think that is it for this episode, peeps.
Heathens.
Thank you so much, Mac, for joining us.
Thank you.
It's always a pleasure talking to you, especially being able to sit down and talk about like something more with more substance for us, you know?
Yeah.
Great conversation to have.
Something deeper than calamari.
Absolutely.
Or what the recipe is for that salad dressing.
Oh my God, that's
all right, ladies. Well, let's do this again, okay? And I'll keep up to date. Oh, and send me the link when you put this on YouTube. I'll share it with my people.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we'll see you tomorrow night anyway.
Oh yeah, awesome. That's right. Yeah,
Trinity's
for Trin's birthday.
For everybody. Trinity, my baby's turning 16 today.
That's amazing. Oh, give her so much love from me.
Oh, I will.
That's awesome. We'll look forward to seeing her.
Yeah.
All right, Cassie, well, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mac. We hope you have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow, and we'll see you heathens in the next episode.
See you, heathens.
Bye-bye.
Bye.